A small colony sat on the edge of a galaxy, far away from the rich and powerful worlds. It was not an important place. It had no great weapons, no treasures, no rare resources that other civilizations might care about. It was simply a settlement, a home for people who wanted peace and safety. But peace rarely lasted long in a universe filled with predators. One day their skies darkened with the arrival of a ruthless invading fleet. The enemy was merciless, a species known for wiping out the weak and taking whatever they wanted. For the colonists, it was the beginning of the end. They had no armies to fight back, no powerful ships to defend themselves. Their walls, their defenses, their courage, none of it could stand against such destruction. The invaders came with fire and steel, and every heart in the colony knew that they could not survive on their own. In that moment of despair, the leaders of the colony made a decision. They would send a cry for help, a desperate message cast into the stars. It was their last hope, their final prayer. The colony's technicians gathered together, working frantically to boost their signal. Words were translated into every language they could manage. "We are under attack," the message said. "Please, anyone hear us? Please save us." The signal leapt from their transmitters, crossing the void of space. It carried their fear, their desperation, their hope. And yet, as it spread, most of the galaxy turned away. Neighboring allies who had promised friendship in times of peace remained silent when the call arrived. Stronger civilizations who could have sent help in hours ignored it. To them, the colony was too small, too unimportant, not worth the cost of a fleet or the risk of war. The galaxy was full of such places, fragile outposts always falling under attack, and most believed this one would simply become another forgotten tragedy. Days passed. The enemy pressed harder. Families hid underground. Supplies began to run out. The colonists still sent their signal over and over, but no answer came. Children asked their parents if anyone would come. Parents smiled weakly, but inside they feared the truth, that no one was coming. The stars were vast, but they felt more alone than ever before. Still, the message traveled. Light years away, across regions the colonists had never even imagined, the faint cry for help reached a blue planet known as Earth. It was not the intended destination. The colony had not even thought of Earth as a possible rescuer. Humanity was not part of their close alliances, not part of their trusted friends. In fact, the galaxy whispered strange things about humans. Stories of their violent history, their endless wars, their survival on a planet filled with dangers that would kill most other species. To many, humans were unpredictable, frightening, perhaps even dangerous to trust. But the signal reached them all the same. On Earth, monitors picked up the SOS. It was faint, broken, filled with static, but the meaning was clear enough. A colony was begging for help. A people were facing annihilation. Some might have ignored it. Some might have said it was not their problem. But humans were not like the others. They remembered their own history, times when they too had cried for help and no one had come. They remembered what it meant to be small, fragile, and forgotten. And so, when the call reached them, humanity listened. For the colonists, those hours of waiting stretched like a lifetime. Each day they wondered if it would be their last. Each sunrise brought smoke from new attacks, and each night was filled with fear of what the enemy would destroy next. They did not know that far away, their message had awakened a response. They did not know that engines were roaring to life, that fleets were preparing to depart. To them, the galaxy had remained silent. Their allies had turned their backs. Their signal was nothing more than a whisper lost in the darkness. But space has a way of carrying whispers to unexpected ears. And this whisper, this desperate plea for survival, had reached Earth. Humanity did not see the colony as worthless. They saw it as a chance, a duty, a responsibility to act when no one else would. The colonists believed no one would come. They believed their message had vanished. But far beyond their sight, their cry had been heard. The universe was about to prove them wrong. The colonists had always known of humans, though most of what they knew came in the form of whispers and rumors that moved through the galaxy like smoke. The stories were not gentle ones. Humanity, they said, came from a death world, a planet so dangerous that most other species would not survive a single season there. Their oceans carried storms that could swallow entire fleets. Their mountains were shaped by fire and earthquakes. Even the animals and plants of Earth were deadly, full of poison teeth and claws. Yet somehow humanity had not only survived there, they had thrived. The galaxy remembered this with a mixture of awe and fear. Other species saw humans as reckless and wild, creatures shaped by constant struggle. Where others built lives in safe, calm environments, humans had been forged in hardship. It was said that they fought each other for centuries, never stopping, always finding new ways to destroy and to endure. Some called them resourceful. Some called them brutal. But almost everyone agreed on one point: humanity was dangerous. For this reason, when the colony sent its desperate signal, they never expected humans to answer. To them, humans were the last people you would call for help. Allies were supposed to bring peace, comfort, protection without fear. Humans, on the other hand, carried with them an aura of chaos. If they came, what would they bring? Aid or destruction? Healing or fire? No one knew. That uncertainty made them terrifying. Still, rumors alone cannot keep a people from acting, and when the signal reached Earth, humanity did not hesitate. They had seen what silence could mean. They had lived through wars where no one came to their aid. They knew what it was to be abandoned, and so, unlike the great and noble empires who had ignored the plea, humans decided to answer. But their way of answering was unlike anyone else's. The colonists had hoped for medics, healers, and transport ships. They imagined white banners of aid, relief supplies, and calm voices promising safety. Instead, what arrived was something altogether different. The humans sent their fleets, dark shapes of steel moving through the void, engines burning like stars. They did not come quietly. They came with power. The first sight of them filled the colony with both relief and terror. Relief because at last someone had answered. Terror because those who had answered were not gentle saviors. They were death worlders, the very species others had warned them about. From orbit, the human ships bristled with weapons, their armor thick, their movements precise. They looked less like rescuers and more like predators circling their prey. For the colonists, it was a confusing moment. Whispers spread through the settlement. Some said this was salvation. After all, what enemy could stand against the fury of death worlders? Others trembled, wondering if perhaps they had traded one doom for another. What if the humans decided the colony was not worth saving after all? What if they came not as allies but as conquerors? Still, in that moment, choice no longer mattered. The humans had come. Their response was not a soft voice or a gentle hand. It was the thunder of warships, the kind of power that made entire empires think twice before attacking. The galaxy had taught the colonists to fear humanity's violence, but now that violence might be the very thing that saved them, the irony was sharp. They had cried out for help, expecting mercy and kindness. Instead, they received a fleet that embodied everything they feared: unpredictability, aggression, unstoppable will. And yet there was no denying it. The humans had answered when no one else would. They had risked their ships, their people, and their lives to come to the aid of a colony most of the galaxy considered worthless. As the colony watched the human fleet take position in the skies above, hearts pounded with conflicting emotions. Fear of the very beings who had come to save them, gratitude for the fact that someone, anyone, had cared enough to respond. And deep down, a growing realization: the galaxy's stories about humanity were true. They were violent. They were unpredictable. They were dangerous. But in this moment, in this desperate hour, perhaps that was exactly what the colony needed. Because where healers might have failed, where diplomats might have been too late, the humans had arrived ready for war. The colony's sky was already burning when the humans arrived. Enemy ships hung above the world like vultures, raining fire down on villages and tearing apart the last defenses that the colonists had managed to build. Families huddled underground, shaking as the ground trembled with every blast. Many believed that the end had finally come, that there was no escape from the invaders' cruelty. Then the sensors lit up with something new. Strange signals entering the system, ships moving fast, too fast to belong to the enemy. At first, the colonists did not believe what they saw. A fleet was approaching, dark shapes cutting through space with engines that glowed like suns. They had been told countless times that no help would come. Yet now, here they were, ships of a kind the colonists had only seen in rumors and reports. Humanity had arrived. There was no pause, no negotiation, no words exchanged when the humans came into range. They did not open channels or ask questions. They did not announce their presence with speeches or symbols of peace. Their first act was action. Their ships broke formation and dove into the fight with terrifying precision, weapons firing before the enemy even realized they were there. The colonists watched the battle unfold on their monitors, their hearts pounding. Human warships were not elegant or graceful like those of other species. They were brutal machines built for survival, built for destruction. Every cannon fired with the soundless fury of years of war. Missiles streaked through the black void, striking enemy vessels with deadly accuracy. Where the enemy had dominated the skies, suddenly they were pushed back, scrambling to defend themselves. To the colonists, it was overwhelming. They had asked for rescue, but what they saw looked like predators in a frenzy, tearing apart their prey with cold efficiency. Human ships moved like hunters, cornering enemy craft, driving them into traps, striking without hesitation. There was no wasted motion, no sign of mercy. When an enemy ship tried to retreat, the humans cut it down. When another tried to shield its allies, the humans struck at its weak points until it burned. It was terrifying to watch. These were not healers. These were not diplomats. This was not the arrival of saviors in shining armor. This was war in its purest form, unleashed not to conquer but to defend. And yet the effect was undeniable. For the first time since the invasion began, the tide was turning. The colony's defenses, weak and broken as they were, suddenly came alive again. With the human fleet driving the enemy back, the colonists found courage where before there had been only despair. They cheered as enemy ships fell one by one, consumed in fire. Children who had been weeping in the shelters now whispered to their parents, asking if the humans were angels or monsters. The parents did not know how to answer. Above them, the battle grew fiercer. The enemy fought with desperation, shocked that someone had dared to challenge their dominance. They turned their fire on the humans, trying to overwhelm them with numbers. But humanity did not falter. Their ships absorbed the blows, shields sparking, armor holding, and then they struck back harder. Where one human ship was damaged, two more covered it. Where the enemy tried to surround them, the humans broke through with deadly force. Every moment of the fight showed the difference between humans and the rest of the galaxy. Other species fought wars with rules, with hesitation, with restraint. Humans fought as if every battle was for their survival, as if retreat was never an option. Their tactics were fast, brutal, and unpredictable. They did not fear sacrifice. They did not fear blood. The colonists could feel it in their bones as they watched. This was not just help. This was not just protection. This was the fury of a species that had been shaped by struggle on a world that wanted them dead. These were survivors. Warriors born from a death world where only the strongest endured. And now all that fury was turned outward, against the invaders who had come to destroy the colony. The invaders realized too late what they were facing. Their formations broke, their fleets shattered. Ships that had once seemed unstoppable now burned like falling stars. For the first time, the colonists could look up at the sky and believe that they might live to see another day. Survival, which had felt impossible only hours before, now glimmered in front of them like a light in the darkness. When the last of the enemy ships tried to flee, the humans did not allow them to escape unpunished. They chased them down, hammering them until only wreckage remained. No quarter was given, no mercy shown. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the battle was over. The skies above the colony cleared, filled not with enemy fire but with the heavy silhouettes of human ships standing guard. Silence settled across the settlement. The colonists emerged from their shelters, blinking in disbelief. The humans had come. They had fought like predators, like demons unleashed from legend, yet because of them the colony still stood. The enemy was gone. The people were alive. It was hard to know what to feel. Relief, certainly. Gratitude, beyond question. But also fear. Fear of what kind of allies the humans truly were. For the colonists had seen with their own eyes that the galaxy's rumors were true. Humans were violent. Humans were dangerous. And when they fought, it was like watching storms tear across the sky. Still, as the smoke cleared and the colony looked upon the human fleet above them, one truth could not be denied. For the first time since the invasion began, survival was no longer a dream. It was real, and it had come at the hands of the very species they had been taught to fear the most. The battle in the sky was over, but the humans did not simply leave after their victory. Most species in the galaxy would have fought, defeated the enemy, and then departed, leaving only promises or simple aid behind. But the humans were different. Once the last enemy ship was gone, their fleet did not turn away. Instead, smaller craft broke from the larger ships and descended toward the colony's surface. Engines roared above villages, stirring the dust and shaking the ground as human transports landed. For the colonists, the sight was both comforting and terrifying. Comforting because they were no longer alone. Terrifying because they did not know what kind of people had come to live among them. The rumors of humanity's brutality were still fresh in their minds. Now those rumors would be tested face to face. The first humans to set foot on the ground came in armored suits, heavy boots striking the soil with a weight of authority. They moved with precision as if every step had a purpose. Weapons were carried not loosely, but held tight and ready even though the enemy was already gone. Their eyes scanned every shadow, every rooftop, as though danger could appear at any second. To the colonists, they looked less like rescuers and more like soldiers preparing for another war. But the humans had not come only with weapons. Behind the soldiers came others, teams carrying supplies, crates of food, water purifiers, medical kits, and building equipment. They wasted no time on ceremony. There were no speeches, no promises of friendship. They simply went to work. While one group distributed food, another set up portable shelters for families who had lost their homes. Medics moved from person to person with scanners and medicine, patching wounds that the colony's doctors could not treat. Engineers studied the colony's broken defenses and immediately began rebuilding them, welding, repairing, and fortifying as though preparing for another attack. The colonists were stunned by the speed and order with which the humans worked. Every action was sharp and decisive, every move efficient. Where the colonists hesitated, the humans acted. Where the colonists suggested caution, the humans pushed forward without delay. To the survivors, it was a strange mix of salvation and intimidation. These were helpers, yes, but they were helpers who carried themselves with the discipline of an army and the focus of predators. The humans began teaching as well. They gathered groups of colonists and showed them how to defend themselves, how to build stronger barriers, how to fight if the enemy returned. They taught them how to ration supplies, how to create hidden storage, how to stay alive even if the colony was cut off from all outside help. Their lessons were harsh, stripped of comfort. "Do this or you will die," one soldier said simply to a group of farmers as he handed them improvised weapons. There was no gentleness in the training, no soft encouragement, only hard truths. The colonists had never experienced anything like it. Their culture valued peace and patience. To them, survival meant working together calmly, avoiding conflict whenever possible. The humans saw things differently. To them, survival meant preparing for the worst, always assuming danger was near, and never relaxing even in victory. It was a way of life forged on their own death world, where every day had been a fight against nature itself. For the colonists, the help was undeniable. Children who had been starving now ate full meals from human supplies. Families who had lost their homes slept in new shelters built by human engineers. Wounded colonists who might have died were saved by human medicine. Their broken walls stood tall again, stronger than before. Yet alongside gratitude there was also fear. They feared the humans' eyes, sharp, watchful, always calculating. They feared the humans' tone, firm, commanding, leaving no room for argument. They feared the humans' methods, uncompromising and cold, as if compassion had been stripped away and replaced with discipline. One night, when a group of colonists gathered around a fire, they whispered about what they had seen. One said the humans were saviors. Another said they were conquerors in disguise. A third argued that it didn't matter what they were, because without them, the colony would already be ash. They all agreed on one thing, though. The humans were unlike anyone else in the galaxy. Even small acts of kindness carried a weight to them. When a human soldier gave his own rations to a hungry child, his expression did not soften. He handed over the food as though it were a mission order, not a gift. When a medic treated the wounds of an elder, she did not offer comforting words, only instructions on how to avoid infection. To the colonists, it seemed that humans had taken the raw, harsh lessons of their world and turned them into habits that never faded. The colony soon learned that the humans did not trust peace. Where others might have celebrated victory, the humans prepared for the next battle. Patrols circled the settlement at all hours. Defensive weapons were installed at key points, manned even when the skies were clear. Every colonist who could hold a tool or weapon was pushed to train, to practice, to be ready. "The enemy will come back," the humans insisted. "And next time, You must not depend only on us. This philosophy unsettled many of the colonists, but it also awakened something inside them. For the first time, they were not simply waiting to be rescued. They were being taught to rescue themselves. The humans had not come to coddle them or to promise safety. They had come to force them to be stronger. Days turned into weeks, and the colony slowly transformed. Homes were rebuilt with stronger materials. Farms were protected by walls and guard towers. Underground shelters were stocked with supplies that could last months. Children were trained in drills alongside adults. Life became harder, stricter, but also safer. The colonists looked around and realized that their once helpless settlement was now a fortress. And that change had come only because of the humans. Still, the fear remained. For the colonists could not shake the image of the humans in battle, tearing through enemies like predators. They could not forget the harsh voices of their trainers or the cold stares of their soldiers. Help had come, but it had not come in the way they imagined. It came wrapped in discipline, in violence, in survival at any cost. At night, when the stars shone above them, the colonists sometimes wondered if they had called the right species after all. But then they would remember the silence of the galaxy when they had sent their SOS, the refusal of their allies to help, and the fire of the enemy that had nearly destroyed them. And they would look at the walls around them, at their children who were alive, at their families who had been saved, and they knew the truth. The humans might be terrifying, their methods might be brutal, but they had answered when no one else would. They had stayed when others would have left. And because of them, the colony had a future. The colony survived, but survival was not the end of the story. What had happened on that distant world could not be hidden. Stories in the galaxy always traveled faster than ships, carried on whispers, carried on fear, carried on wonder. And soon, every corner of the galaxy had heard the tale of the desperate SOS that had reached an unexpected people. The colony had not been saved by their allies, nor by the great powers of the stars, but by humanity, the Death Worlders everyone feared. To some, this story was told like a miracle. A small, fragile colony had been on the edge of destruction, abandoned by those they trusted. When all hope was lost, humans had come, striking like fire from the darkness, destroying the invaders and giving the colonists a chance to live. For these storytellers, humanity became a symbol of hope, proof that even the most dangerous allies could choose compassion, proof that sometimes help comes from the least expected places. But to others, the story was darker. They remembered the way humans fought, not with calm, not with restraint, but with fury and precision that bordered on terrifying. They remembered the descriptions of human soldiers training colonists like recruits, teaching them to fight and survive with no softness in their words. They remembered that the humans had not left after victory, but stayed, spreading their own ways, their own brutal logic of survival. To these storytellers, humanity was not a miracle. It was a warning. The phrase spread quickly. The colony's SOS had reached the wrong species. It was said with a shiver, as if the colonists had accidentally opened their door to wolves when they had only wanted shepherds. But just as quickly, others asked a different question. Had it truly been the wrong species? Or had it been the right one all along? After all, who else had come? Who else had risked themselves for a colony that no one thought was worth saving? The survivors themselves carried mixed feelings. They spoke of human doctors who had saved the wounded, of human engineers who had rebuilt defenses, of human soldiers who had stood watch at night when the colonists were too tired to stay awake. They owed their lives to the humans. Children played again, families laughed again, fields grew food again, all because humanity had chosen to stay. Yet in the same breath they spoke of fear. They remembered the look in human eyes during training, sharp and cold. They remembered the thunder of human weapons, the way enemy ships were destroyed without mercy. They remembered being forced to hold weapons themselves, to train in ways that felt alien to their peaceful lives. Humanity had saved them, but had also changed them forever. Other colonies across the stars listened carefully to these accounts. Some took comfort. If the humans will help them, they said, then perhaps they will help us too. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated them. They began to see humanity not only as dangerous, but as useful allies in times of great peril. For a people that had always stood on the edge of survival, maybe that kind of dangerous ally was exactly what was needed. But in other places, the stories spread fear. Leaders warned their people not to call on humans, not to trust them, not to invite them into their worlds. They argued that once humans arrived, they never left unchanged. Their discipline, their harshness, their way of life would infect others, spreading like a fire until nothing familiar remained. To them, humanity was not a savior but a shadow, a reminder that sometimes rescue comes at a price. And so the legend grew. In taverns, travelers told the tale with wide eyes, exaggerating the size of the human fleet until it sounded like an endless armada. In councils, politicians whispered about the risk of letting humans grow too bold. In hidden corners, oppressed peoples prayed that if they were ever attacked, their cries would reach humanity too. The story became part of the galaxy's fabric, retold, reshaped, feared, and admired. For the survivors, it was more personal. They looked at their rebuilt homes and thought of the humans who had walked their streets. They remembered the lessons drilled into them. Never leave food unprotected, never let your guard down, never assume safety, always prepare for the worst. These lessons felt harsh, even cruel at times, but they had given the colony strength. The colonists knew they would never be the same. Before, they had been a people who trusted peace. Now they were a people who had seen war, who had trained with Deathworlders, who knew that survival demanded more than hope. Children grew up hearing both sides of the story. Their parents told them to respect the humans, but also to fear them. Elders told them that humans had saved their lives, but also warned that their way was dangerous to follow too closely. And so, even within the colony, humanity became both a hero and a warning, a symbol of salvation and a reminder of danger. The lesson spread wider than the colony. Across the galaxy, people repeated it in different ways. Some said, "If you send a cry for help, pray the humans hear it." Others said, "If you send a cry for help, beware, because the humans may answer." The meaning shifted depending on who told the story. To some, it was hope. To others, it was dread. But in both cases, humanity had become unforgettable. And so the simple truth echoed far beyond the small world where it all began. When you call for help, you cannot choose who will answer. You cannot control what kind of hand reaches out to you. The colony had learned this lesson in the most shocking way. They had asked for peace and had been given war. They had asked for healers and had been given fighters. They had asked for safety and had been given humans. Was it the wrong species? Perhaps. Was it the right one? Perhaps. The answer depended on who you asked, on whether you valued survival above comfort, on whether you could accept that sometimes saviors come with shadows. What no one could deny was this. The humans had come when no one else did. They had fought when no one else dared. They had answered the SOS when the rest of the galaxy stayed silent. And that, more than anything else, was what the galaxy remembered.